All right, let's talk about something you probably do every single day and never think twice about. What is actually going on in those few seconds after you hit the power button on your computer? It's not magic, and it's not just one single thing happening. It's this incredibly fast, carefully planned journey from a totally silent box to the powerhouse tool you use every day. So let's walk through that whole process together, step by step. So, where does it all begin? It starts with the very first spark of electricity hitting something called the firmware. This is this deep, fundamental software that's built right onto your computer's motherboard, and its only job is to give that initial command to wake everything up. Just think of the firmware as your computer's most basic primal instincts. I mean, before it can even dream of running Windows or Chrome or anything else, it needs this software to poke all the hardware components and just make sure they're awake, connected, and ready to go. And this right here, this shows you just how far we've come. For ages, computers had that old-school text-based BIOS on the left. It worked, but man, it was slow and super limited. Today's machines, they use UEFI, and it's a total game changer. You get a nice graphical interface, you can use massive hard drives, it boots way faster, and it has absolutely critical security stuff like Secure Boot to stop malware before it even gets a chance to load. Okay, so the firmware is awake and has done its initial check. Now comes its most important job, kicking off the boot process. This is the moment, the critical handoff, where the hardware gets ready to pass the baton over to the main operating system. And the very first thing it does is run a quick self-checkup, called the Power On Self-Test, or POST for short. It's basically the computer talking to itself, going, okay, is my memory here? Yep. Is my storage connected? Got it. Keyboard plugged in? Check. If everything passes this little test, it knows it's good to go to the next step. So what's next? It has to find the bootloader. And the bootloader is kind of like the ignition key in your car. See, the firmware gets the electricity flowing, but it's the bootloader that actually turns the key, fires up the engine, and gets the main operating system, the part you actually use, up and running. And boom, here's the whole chain reaction in one picture. It all starts with you hitting that power button. That triggers the firmware, which runs its post. Then it finds your hard drive and launches that bootloader we just talked about. The bootloader then loads the core of the operating system, which is called the kernel, and that finally brings you to your login screen. It's just this perfect, beautiful cascade of events. All right, the hardware is checked, it's ready to go. Now it's time to install the computer's brain, the operating system, or OS. This is the software that manages absolutely everything and lets you run all your other programs. So, the installation itself follows these basic steps. You'll boot up from a USB stick, you'll tell the firmware to look there first, and then you have to make one of the most important decisions in this whole setup, how you're going to partition your drive. Now, I know it sounds super technical, but the idea is actually really simple, and it's so important for keeping your digital life organized and, more importantly, safe. So let's break down why this step matters so much. This is the perfect way to think about it. You're basically taking one big, empty hard drive and putting up a digital wall. Your C drive, that's the room where the operating system and all your programs live. The D drive, that's for all your personal stuff, your documents, your photos, your games. And here's why that's so smart. If your C drive ever gets messy and you need to reinstall Windows from scratch, all your personal files on that D drive are completely safe and untouched. It's a lifesaver. Okay, so the OS is installed, you can see your desktop, but we're not quite done yet. Now, this brand new brain has to learn how to talk to all the different parts of the body. I mean, really think about it for a second. Every single piece of hardware from every company is a little bit different. Your operating system knows general commands like, hey, display an image, but it doesn't speak the unique language of your specific NVIDIA graphics card or your Canon printer. It needs some help. It needs a translator. And that is exactly what device drivers are. They're the translators. A driver is a tiny piece of software that takes a generic request from the OS and translates it into a very specific instruction that your hardware actually understands. Without the right driver, your brand new super expensive graphics card is just a useless piece of plastic. You can see here how it's the critical link in the chain, right? An application tells the operating system what it wants to do. The OS then passes that request to the device driver. The driver translates it into a command the physical hardware can execute. It is the essential go-between that makes everything just work. And that brings us to the final, and I mean absolutely critical, step, getting all of those translators installed so every single component can do its job. And the good news is you've got two really solid, safe ways to do this. The easiest way is just to run Windows Update. Microsoft is pretty good at automatically finding and installing drivers for most common hardware. But if you've got something special, like a high-end graphics card, or you just want the absolute latest version, going directly to the manufacturer's website is always your best bet. Now, if you do decide to download drivers yourself, please just follow these simple rules. It'll keep your system safe and running smoothly. First, always go to the official website, NVIDIA, Dell, whoever made the part. Double-check that you have the exact model number right, and make sure you grab the version that matches your operating system, like Windows 11 64-bit. And whatever you do, stay away from those sketchy third-party downloader sites. This note from our source material just hits the nail on the head. It says, important, after the installation process, don't forget to install the drivers. That really tells you everything. You can have a perfect OS installation, but without the right drivers, your computer just isn't finished. This is the step that truly brings it all to life. And there you have it. From that first little jolt of electricity, through the hardware check, the OS installation, and that final driver setup, your machine is now a complete, powerful system. That whole journey from a silent box to a tool ready for your ideas happens in just a matter of moments. So now that it's fully operational, the only question left is, what are you going to create with it? Thanks for joining this explainer.